In this presentation, I'd like to talk about some of the ways cultural anthropologists look at contemporary and historical global interconnections. Let's start with a case from India before turning to some concepts. Every morning, women in Plachimada, a rural area of southern India, begin a 3-mile trek in search of fresh water. The morning journey for water is a common task for many women across the world. 1/3 of the planet's population lives with water scarcity, but such scarcity is new to the people of Plachimada, an area typically rich in agricultural harvests. Local residents trace the changes to March 2000, when the Coca-Cola company opened a bottling plant in the village. The plant is capable of producing 1.2 million bottles of Coke, Sprite, and Fanta every day. It takes 9 liters of fresh water to make 1 liter of Coke, so Plachimada's large underground aquifer was an attractive source for the company. But according to local officials, when the company began to drill more wells and install high-powered pumps to extract groundwater for the factory, the local water table fell dramatically, from 150 feet below the surface to almost 500 feet, far more than could be explained by periods of limited rainfall. Local residents also claimed that Coca-Cola workers were dumping chemical waste on land near the factory and that runoff was polluting the groundwater. Local women organized protests and sit-ins at the factory gate. With assistance of local media and international human rights networks, the protesters' activism drew national and international attention. It even spurred solidarity actions, including support from university students in the United States, Canada, the UK, and Norway. As a result, the local village withdrew Coca-Cola's license, but the state government maintained its support. The case finally reached the highest state court, which ruled that Coca-Cola must cease illegal extraction of groundwater in Plachimada. Now, for those of us who enjoy a Coke with lunch, dinner, or breakfast, the story of the women of Plachimada offers a challenge to consider how our lives are connected to theirs. It is a challenge to explore how a simple soft drink made by U.S. corporations may link people halfway around the world in ways both simple and profound. This is also a challenge in anthropology today, not only to understand the rich diversity of human experience, but also to see how particular life experiences connect to those of others. The story of Plachimada also provides one example of what anthropologists refer to as globalization. In this case, a global company, Coca-Cola, expands operations to India and impacts villagers' lives by depleting the local water table. Villagers, in turn, gain global support through the media and the internet. As a global corporation, the Coca-Cola company has successfully pushed into much of the planet. But as this case illustrates, global capitalism does not only bring peace and harmony or little drops of joy. The case of Plachimada and Coca-Cola provides one example of globalization, a term used to point to increasing flows of capital, goods, people, images, and ideas around the world. Today, most introductory anthropology textbooks have chapters on globalization. Here are a couple of definitions. Barbara Miller defines globalization as increased and intensified international ties related to the spread of Western, especially U.S. capitalism that affects all world cultures. So for her, globalization is synonymous with Westernization. This is certainly true in the global expansion of Coca-Cola, but of course there are many other kinds of global interconnections that take place outside the West, such as the migration of Filipinos to work in Dubai, Singapore, or Hong Kong. Welsh and Vivanco define globalization as the widening scale of cross-cultural interactions caused by the global movement of money, people, goods, images, and ideas within nations and across national boundaries. Konrad Kottak suggests that a single world capitalist system emerged in the 16th century with a goal of producing goods and services for sale and profit. We'll discuss the world capitalist system in more detail below. For Kottak, globalization is the latest phase of the world capitalist system, which he sees as linked economically and through the mass media in modern transportation systems. Communication technologies link people instantly across the globe. Economic activities challenge national boundaries. People are on the move within and between countries. Violence and terrorism disrupt lives. Increasingly, greater diversity on our doorstep opens possibilities for deeper understanding and for greater misunderstanding. Clearly, the human community in the 21st century is being drawn further into a global web of interaction. Not all scholars agree on when globalization arose or what its main phases are, but here one approach lays out three stages. First, from 1500 to 1800, the growth of the world capitalist system was a driving force linking diverse regions. Second, in the 19th and 20th centuries, politics led the way. Nation-states produced a system of international relations that characterized global linkages with integrated national traditions and multinational corporations. Third, in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, cultural flows are leading global changes in both politics and economics. It's important to keep in mind, of course, that any schema of this type is a vast oversimplification. This model leaves out colonialism, for example. It does, however, help us to think about very complicated processes and connections over time and space. After all, like culture itself, globalization is a very complex idea. Pitersi refers to contemporary accelerated globalization that has brought about new power relations and benefits for those who control global capital. This new system involves the rapid circulation of information through computer technology and flexible production and labor. This means that global companies have the power and flexibility to open and close factories around the world to take advantage of lower tariffs and wages and weaker environmental regulations. In recent decades, for example, we've seen the movement of many factories in the American Midwest, first to Mexico and then to China. Anthropologist Arjuna Appadurai, originally from India, has been a leading thinker about contemporary globalization and culture. He has analyzed contemporary global flows in terms of 5 categories: ethnicity, ideology, finance, technology, and media. He also refers to the deterritorialization of cultural forms. In other words, in a global landscape, culture is no longer always rooted in a specific place. For Appadurai, migration and electronic mass media are key driving forces. Anthropologist Ian Condrey proposes examining how different social actors actively consume and create new cultural forms in specific sites. He studied how Tokyo youth consume and adapt hip-hop in specifically Japanese ways. To summarize, 3 key features that drive globalization today are communication technologies, transportation technologies, and Western capitalism. Communication technologies, including cell phones, the internet, and social media, connect people in myriad ways. Fast and relatively inexpensive transportation has changed the ways people conceive of distance. If you have a ticket and travel documents, you can drive to any airport, board a plane, and arrive in most major cities across the planet within 36 hours. Transportation technology also refers to the humble but ubiquitous shipping container, which I see regularly passing through my Midwestern U.S. town on freight trains and semi-trucks. Since their introduction in the 1950s, shipping containers have also had dramatic impact on the global shipping industry, enhancing the ability to move goods cheaply and efficiently. The rise of China's massive export economy, for example, relies heavily on container shipping. Capitalism, which originated in the West and has become global, is an economic system based on private ownership of the means of production and market distribution of goods and services for profit. I get the part about communications and transportation technology, but why capitalism? Capitalism is a system of ideas that has changed how people make a living, how they relate to one another, and even how they think the universe works. A key feature of capitalism is market distribution. In other words, goods and services are distributed through market exchange. Exchanges of goods and services, trade, are calculated according to a universal medium of exchange, that is, money. Pricing is carried out by means of a supply and demand. Another term for this price mechanism is the market. But isn't that a universal part of human nature? No, market exchange is only one of many possible modes of economy. In addition to market exchange, anthropologists also investigate other kinds of exchange systems. These include reciprocity, redistribution, and non-accumulative entrepreneurship. We'll learn more about these in an upcoming module on economic systems. In its ideal form, capitalism is often characterized as fierce competition between businesses, between Coca-Cola and Pepsi, for example, or between Microsoft and Apple. In some parts of the Middle East, entrepreneurs ruthlessly exploit customers, but they cooperate rather than compete amongst themselves. Many believe that too much competition and refusal to help our fellow businessmen will lead to being cursed by the evil eye. What's more, a 2005 study showed that traditional businesses using cooperative entrepreneurship in tough economic circumstances could outperform businesses run on Western competitive principles by college-educated executives. This suggests that there may be alternatives to capitalism with its intense competition. Also, in the past, many societies did not use money or use money like tokens in only very restricted settings. The point here is that capitalism isn't just about labor, goods, and trade. It's about ideas, which means it's about culture.